Hey y'all, I'm Adrienne, and this is part 2 of our conversation with Dani McClain, where she is giving us the sibling interview. If you didn't hear the first part, you probably should. Go back and listen to that first. It's one big conversation, and we're just sharing it in 2 parts because it lasted for quite a while. All right. Oh, and another reminder, we have amazing merch for you. I drew a picture of unicorns running away from an exploding planet. So you want to check it out, patreon.com/IntoTheWorldShow. So here's some more Dani with Autumn and I.
So it's funny, Adrienne, you are one of the first people who I met who really emphasized your identity as being biracial because where I grew up, mixed people were black. Like that was just kind of what was going on in the 90s in Cincinnati, in like rural Cincinnati where I was from. And so you were one of the first people I met who pushed back and said, I'm not black. My mom is white and I don't reject her identity and my own identity. Can you guys talk about kind of your own racial identity formation and what it's meant in your personal lives and in your movement work to be biracial or black biracial or however you identify?
Yeah, it's it's so interesting to hear that now to be like, oh yeah, that's totally where I was at 17 years old. I was like, yeah, this is where I am. I was very solid. And I think that's because our parents really raised us with race on a back burner or decentered. Like it wasn't like absent, but it just wasn't how they were defining us. And we were around a lot of other kids who also had parents from multiple lineages, and it was like a thing, like everyone had these backgrounds where it was like you're black and Japanese or black and German or something. Is mostly black and something else.
Mhm.
And now in my 40s, I actually have gone through many cycles with this. Like I remember being ashamed of it as I got politicized in college, probably after I had talked to you about that. Like as I got politicized, it was like, oh no, like you are black, like one drop is black, that is you're not going to have a white experience, you're only going to have a black experience, and so on. But I look back now with such gratitude that our parents also made the move that they made, because it felt like, and I think this is something that a lot of multiracial kids know, it felt like we were given an experience of like the construct of race is a lie. It is a construct, it's not actually a real thing. There are the experiences of oppression that are tied to race, and those are real, and we're going to have to contend with them. But fundamentally, you are a human being having a human experience, and you have multiple lineages in that experience. And even people who are black actually have multiple lineages inside their black experience, multiple tribal lineages, multiple experiences within that. Um, but it doesn't. It gave me this sense of like, oh, when people say your skin color makes you fundamentally different in some way that every person of that skin color experiences, we grew up outside of that lie. And it was like, first we get to just be ourselves. And who are we? And I remember I remember one of the answers, people would be like, what are you? And I remember one of my first answers, like, what do you need me to be?
Mhm.
And even my child self, I had some understanding that a lot of the categories that we end up living into are for other people, are for how can I categorize you so that I can reduce you and control you, or put you where I want you to be, or recognize whether I'm superior to you or not. Like so many of the questions are that. Um, and like in our family, we have white family and black family, and on both sides, all the things happened, which feels important to me too. It's
Mhm.
like everyone had teenage pregnancies and pregnancies out of wedlock. Everyone was using drugs and there were addiction problems. There was college dropouts. There were college breakthroughs. There were successes. There was economic hardship. There was like every single thing that people were like, oh, this is because you're this or because you're that. It all happened. Trouble with the law. People went to jail. Like, all of it was happening on both sides of our families. Eating disorders, trauma, petty fights. And the only difference was that on one side of our family, the white side, they were told they were superior to all those things. And so when those things were happening, I was like, how do we hide them? We
Mhm.
don't acknowledge that that's happening. We don't talk about that. It's gossip, it's behind the scenes. And on the other side of the family, it was like, this is what's to be expected of you.
This
And
is
it's
real
like, how
life.
do we, this is real life. This is what the black experience is. And you should just expect that. And so it's like, how do I transcend this? So the
Mm.
narrative arc of life was, am I falling from some promised white grace, or am I transcending like the Black experience? Like, what is it? And inside of it's like, you're having a human experience that is really deeply shaped by race. And it's going to be shaped by all these other things. Intersectionality was mind blowing for me later when we came across that. Um, but being biracial and multiracial, I also think, it's not that magical answer that people thought it was. I think when we were coming up with, people were like, yeah, this is going to be the way. Like, everyone will just
We'll
be
just
in
mix everybody
multiracial,
and that will
interracial
heal the
relationships.
world.
Exactly. I think there was that. And it's like, no, there's nothing you do that's going to take away the trauma that needs to be dealt with and accounted for on all sides. And I wouldn't wish the delusion of supremacy on my worst enemy. And since they already have that delusion, I'm just like, I hope you heal from that delusion. But I also wouldn't wish for Black people the idea of a monolithic Blackness that they have to like check off these boxes. And I think the more people can lean into the vibrance, the complexity of all these identities, the better off they are. But yeah, I feel like I'm in a continuous journey with that aspect of my identity, where I know my Blackness, I've experienced my Blackness, and I also know that being multiracial gives you this other experience. And Dani, we were laughing about this, but I feel like it's something I want to throw in here too, is in movement space, particularly the people I've seen go the hardest about how
Right.
Blackness needs to be held as this very tightly contained and controlled thing are almost all mixed people, light-skinned people, people in multiracial relationships, or people who grew up going to white schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's people who don't feel confident necessarily in their Blackness. And so there ends up being this like policing
of the
overdoing of
boundaries.
it,
Yeah.
right? Where when I meet folks who are like, yeah, I'm Black, that was never a question. It's not a question now. What's good? Let's move. Let's organize. Let's build. And so it's something I keep, I hope to continue learning about.
I love hearing your experience of this, Adrienne. Yeah, there was a point where I feel like I started answering that question, the what are you question. I'd be like, I'm mom white, dad Black.
Exactly.
I love that, because there is like a gendered piece to it too, right? It's like, okay, you're mixed, but is your mom Black or white?
Exactly.
And then there are all
What's your
these, what does
mom?
that
That
mean?
matters.
Let me find a phrase that gives you all the information that you're clearly seeking. In many ways, I think, Adrienne, you and I have had a pretty similar arc of, I don't want to say the word evolution, but more like continually evolving in our understanding of who we are, and also how like the people that we are intersects with these categories that are the current categories.
Yeah.
And, as an amateur historian, I think I also just stay in the place of like, this is just what it is right now. Like, we invest so much meaning into the current reality, and to the detriment of like remembering that there are just other realities. There have always been other realities. I've been thinking about this a lot with like Aikido practice, because I just started practicing Aikido, which is, a Japanese martial art form. Mm-hmm. And of course, questions around like cultural appropriation arise in taking on such a practice. And then I have to just keep regrounding myself in the reality that like these practices were developed at a point in time in which that concern, like the framing of cultural appropriation, like was not a thought, Yeah. And it's, the same for so many of our, greatest spiritual practices. The idea that we need to be concerned about appropriation and ownership is contemporary. Mm-hmm. Which is not to say that it's not important, but just to say that it's contemporary, And so I think about like my arc. I have so many memories of mom, like marching into schools and just being like, you, white woman teacher,
Yeah.
I'm standing face to face with you as another white woman telling you that you do not get to tell my daughter how to identify, and you don't get to tell her anything about her racial identity. You don't get to talk to her about that. It's not your job. And then the conversations that were happening between us in private were these really vulnerable, like surprisingly vulnerable moments when you think about it,
Yeah.
where our parents were like, we don't know what to tell you about like what you are or who you are, because you're having a fundamentally different racial experience than what we had. So
Yeah.
it's not our job to tell you that. It's your job to figure it out, and it's only yours. And I do think that that the freedom of being given permission by my parental authorities to self-define was such an important part of my, like, who I am as a person and who I've become. It's made it so much easier to also like lean into the other parts of my identity that may be considered like transgressive to
Yes.
mainstream society. You know, it's like leaning into being queer. I mean, it took me a while to finally like come out to the world. Which was funny because when I finally did come out to the world, of course, everyone was like,
Duh.
yeah, like no one is confused or surprised. Yeah, it's like, I think I feel and have always felt a real sense of boundary around my right to self-define. Which has left me then in the glad place of being able to shift and change like how I name myself over time. You know, there was a period of time in my self-development where I really felt politically like it was important for me to identify as both a white woman and as a Black woman because of my light skinnedness and the proximity to whiteness that I held. Now I don't feel that anymore. But I don't regret that I went through that phase, because I think it helped shape so much of my understanding about like my capacity to work with and help support the healing of the cultural trauma of whiteness, right? Like letting myself be as close into it as I was and feel the trauma of it was necessary both for my political development, for my ideological development, and for my spiritual development. Because then there came a point where I was like, I understand that for my healing, I actually need to not like sacrifice myself on this altar, right? For my healing, I actually need to get myself to safety and not feel like I have to be proximal to whiteness as absolutely possible for the sake of the movement, you know? And and it, you know, it was around the time that I was like having those understandings that I discovered like Black feminist praxis, Black feminist theory, that I started really grounding myself in like Black feminism as like a body of not just theoretical but spiritual work that then reshaped how I do what I do. And so for me, all of that, like the whole arc of it, from the way our parents helped us orient to it to now, has set me up for being able to experience my Blackness as a space of healing, not as like a site of trauma. Because there's such profound magic in our culture. Like truly, I do think Black people are magical, you know. I think that we are magical. But I think that I had to go really close to, I think I had to like, it's like, you know, a planet making an arc, right? Like I think I had to go out to those outer edges, like the outer zone of where it's really cold and dark, you know, which is that cultural void where whiteness is. I had to go out there in order to like come back around and be like, this is actually beautiful. Like this is this thing that, you know, that our society tells us is like only a site of oppression and trauma is actually like the most beautiful thing that's happened like in the last 400 years on this land. So,
Well, and
you know,
I'm really glad you bring it in that way because I think that's true of so many aspects of identity that we're given identity and like sometimes we claim it, you know, we're like, yes, I'm this, you know, I know I've seen that trend happen where people start to introduce themselves with like, here's the labels that you can use to attend to me. I'm this sexual, I'm this, I'm this, that, whatever. And it's like going through all that. But it's like, what does that identity actually mean for you? And for me, the places I want to claim are those places that I feel, oh, I see them beauty. I see this as a place of beauty. And what I understand is so many of those places, like queerness, are given to us for the sake of oppression. Like it starts out like, oh, we want to oppress you because you're different from the other, different from the norm in this way. And then that's that reclamation practice where it's like, actually, this is what Blackness is, and this is all the incredible power that sits into it, you know. And this is what queerness is, and so on and so forth. And you know, I keep thinking about this. I've been having this conversation with other people in Black liberation work about what it actually means to do Black liberation. Like, what are we actually trying to move towards ultimately? And really, like, what does it look like in practice or as a lived experience? And I was like writing this note down that it was like, ultimately liberation means you're able to act in the way you feel compelled to act and to love yourself without hesitation, to love who you want to love. It doesn't mean you're checking off a particular set of experiences so much as that you're able to understand the patterns of oppression that have shaped our collective conditions. And then you can work to end that oppression. But the path to liberation is always the return to the full potential of your humanity. And the rest is culture, right? Is figuring out like which aspects of the culture speak to you. I know tons of Black people are like, I don't like rap music or whatever it is. It's like, yes. And for some people, that cultural force has been a liberating force or whatever it is, right? So anyway, all that to say, I feel like one of the things that has become more important to me about my racial identity has been to not lie or contort the story to make it more comfortable for other people. You know, I'm like, I can't make white people more comfortable with it. I can't make Black people more comfortable with it. And I won't make other multiracial people more comfortable with it. That's not the goal of telling my story, of telling our story. The goal is our story did happen. It exists. Our parents did fall in love with each other and they raised us in this particular way. And that's the human experience we're having, right? And so because it is being had, it is a legitimate experience that needs to be contended with. And I keep thinking about that as like, there's so many legitimate experiences that we try to reduce out of existence. And I'm like, I don't want to be reduced out of existence. I don't want to be, you know, like those teachers were trying to do, pushed into a box that negated half of my life. Like, I'm not interested in any negation of any aspect of myself at this point. And um, and inside of that, it's interesting because most of the time if people ask me, I say I'm Black and queer, and that encompasses all of it. You know, I'm like, it feels like a very Black experience to have multiracial people as a part of our large number, right? As I know just so many Black people who are mixed with all kinds of things. And there's so many stories of survival and love inside of all of that, as well as stories of harm. Like, it's all there.
Yeah. So what, Adrienne, do you need for people to know about Autumn?
Oh my God. There's so many things that people need to know about this sibling of mine. One is I think of Autumn as like the protagonist of a Shakespearean play. Like, you are a Shakespearean heroine. And I don't think people know this about Autumn is that like,
but is it a tragedy or a comedy?
It is both. You know, it's truly like the scale at which your life happens is so bombastic. It's so massive. And I don't think people, I think when people meet you, the experience they're having is like, here is the most competent person I've ever met. and she's just going to boss everything out. And it's like, that's true. And also, when she leaves you, she is going into whatever the biggest scale of life could be. Like, it's like the most kids and the most things happening, the most changes, and like it's just big, right? And so I think people should know that. And I also think something that it took me a while to learn is that you have an incredible capacity to be inside of what feels to me like chaotic environments, and be calm and peaceful and having the best time, like, so your familial life, like, I love visiting, and I will come and I'm like there for a week, like, and then I leave and I'm like, whew, wow, how I don't know how all that is something that just goes on all the time and y'all are all just riding it out and having a blast. But you're clearly are. Like, everyone is laughing and fighting and laughing and joyful and cooking, and it's all happening. But like, I would come to visit you. I regularly would come to visit Autumn throughout our lives, and I'll land and I'm like, all right, it's going to be you and me. We're going to sit down and like have some wine or something and talk for a few hours. And I'll get there and Autumn's like, hey, like, my 3 best friends are going to be camping in the backyard, and like the kids actually aren't going to be here. They're going to be here like with us. And oh, I got a dog. And like, and so, and still inside of that, if I can follow you around inside the cast, like, we'll have an amazingly, like, you're able to operate at a very deep level inside of that life. But it is so many things happening concurrently, like at all times. And then you'll tell me you're adding something, right? um, so, I'll be like, okay, that's definitely like full. Life is full. And then you're like, I'm taking an Aikido class. I'm like, bitch, when? Like, where? How? How is that going to happen? I also think folks should know that you studied Greek, and like, not just like in a light-hearted way, but like you deeply studied Greek, and
it's not possible to study Greek in a light-hearted way.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else people should know. Autumn really loves to sleep. And I don't know that she'll ever get as much sleep as she deserves in this life. It's one of the prayers, like when I say prayers for you, which is daily, it's one of the main prayers I have for you, is just let Autumn sleep. Like, let her sleep in, let her go to bed early, let her, fall asleep mid-sentence, like, just let her sleep. Like, this is someone who needs to sleep and loves to sleep because of that scale at which you're living your life. So those are some, I think people do know that you're a brilliant writer. Because the first thing on my list when I was like jotting it down was like brilliant novelist. And I was like, oh, everyone will know that eventually.
Someday.
But I think they do know you're a brilliant writer already. It's just like, wait till y'all see how the novel actually feels. So those are some things.
What a sweet prayer for someone, that they get enough rest.
Oh, that's my prayer. That's my prayer for you too, Charlie. Like, I'm like, these are my prayers for my moms in my life, as I'm just like, Lord, I don't understand how they are continuing, but please just give them a nap. Yeah. But that's me. I'm like, when it comes to babies, I'm just like, wow. And so then the baby's just there all the time.
Somehow.
No one comes and takes the baby away?
No. And then just whatever they want to talk about, that's your subject. Oh, awesome. And I'm a great auntie.
Yeah, you are. You are. Autumn, I think so many people think they know all there is to know about Adrienne, right?
But they don't. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm like, what is the boundary here? God, like, Adrienne, I love you so much. And thank you for naming the way that you see me in my chaotic life. I think, okay, so one thing is, I think that people know that you're funny, but I don't think that, I think that people also probably perceive you as much more serious than you actually are. Exactly. And that's one of the things that I love about being your sister, because I know how absolutely ridiculously, absurdly silly you actually are in real life. And like, one of the things that probably most people don't know is that like there's a joke within my family about how Adrienne is actually the youngest because she's the closest to a child in our family. Like that's how my kids relate to Adrienne. Like one of the things that makes Adrienne auntie extraordinaire is that when she arrives, she's like, comes in happy fun style, happy style clothes, happy style everything, and is like, let's binge Jurassic Park Camp Cretaceous. I will watch this with you all day and be like just as into it as you are. Oh my God, Raya and the Last Dragon. Oh my God, this cartoon. Oh my God, that cartoon. Like you have this unique capacity to enter a like truly like childlike wonder when you're with children, but also you're just in childlike wonder, like wherever you are, and like, I remember when we were traveling in Northern Ireland together and we went to, the giant steps. I don't remember what that place is called, but I remember we get out of the vehicle and there's like,
isn't it Finn the Giant or something?
I don't remember. It's some giant left some things and then we went to visit them.
On the water. It's like
on the coast. Yeah. Our listeners will know what I'm talking about. I just can't remember it right now, but we get out of the car and there's like a giant group of birds murmuring and you get out of the car and you're like, like you just start laughing like a crazy person and then you're filming it because you're just so delighted by how big of a group of birds are like murmuring.
It was like thousands of birds.
Like so I think people understand that you experience wonder, but I don't think most people don't get to directly experience what it's like when you enter a state of wonder. But then also you are so fucking hilarious and like so witty, so quick. So like, I mean, we maybe have mentioned this on the show before, but like I literally spent a good 30% of my childhood spitting shit out of my mouth because I was laughing so hard at jokes that you make. And you still are able to do that to me. Like you make me laugh harder than like anybody in my life. The other thing that I think people don't necessarily know about you that I'm really excited to share is that you are really good at games and you win almost all the time. And it's like upsetting. Especially because you go into this whole other like version of yourself where you get like smug, but like you're acting like it's not a big deal, that you're just like winning hand after hand after hand after hand after hand after hand after hand. Like you just like can't stop winning. And then you'll just like make this cute smile and be like, I'm a Virgo. What can I say? It's like, but it's not even your Virgo nature. It's like your genius nature. It's like
it's just that one game.
It's not though. I've experienced this with almost all games that I've played with you. You have a tendency to win. And
what's that game called?
Well, I mean, I've experienced it with spades. I've experienced it with Mario. I've experienced it with Scrabble. I think Melinda is like maybe the only person I know who's beat you at Scrabble.
One time.
Yeah. One time. Exactly. See? Nerds. Oh my God, you're so good at Nerds. But like most card games, like you're really, 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 really skilled at card games. And then I guess the last thing I'll say is like, you are just like a deeply tender and loyal and loving person. And like you feel things on such a deep level. And I think like in our social media culture, it's easy to like see that and think that some level of it is performance, right? But in your case, it's not performance. It's like you just literally are feeling like your heart is so open, and of course that can be, it's like a burden that you carry too, to like have your heart be so open. Like I know that in our relationship, it's been this pretty deep thing where like if I'm experiencing pain, like you are feeling my pain, and like we end up having to do a lot of work around like, how do we differentiate so that you're not so deep in the pain with me that you're not able to like have perspective on it. Right.
Yes.
But it's like, but
like,
that's
we
also
need to get out of this situation.
Exactly. It's like, we need to get to safety. It's like, I need that and you need to help me. No.
Yes.
But I feel like that's been like the beautiful like growth of our relationship also, is like you figuring that out about yourself and me figuring that out about you, and like knowing that like you are my older sister, and of course there's things I expect of you because you're my older sister, and you're also like a fully human person with needs of your own. And part of that has to do with like your deep tenderness, you know? So I've learned over the years not to like, just not to take it for granted, you know? And, not to be so like hard on you, because I'm learning to see like how tender and sweet and soft you actually are, you know?
Mishy.
Mm.
Thank you, sister.
Beautiful. So I have loved this series. I mean, I love this podcast in general, but this series in particular has just been really sweet for me, and I think probably for a lot of folks out there listening. And so I wonder, from your vantage point, because you've led these conversations with so many siblings, what are you learning so far? Are there any themes or insights or kind of, and I think I'm particularly interested in both the title of your podcast, right? How to Survive the End of the World, and moments that you've dug, especially you, Autumn, when you've dug more specifically into like, no, seriously, like, how are we going to survive the end of the world? Like, from a practical perspective here, like, for real.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're learning about family that feels especially relevant to our preparation for and navigation of apocalypse or massive global change?
One of the things that I remember we talked about often in the Apocalypse miniseries that happened in 2020 is like the importance of like knowing your surroundings, like being really familiar with your environment, and also knowing your people, like knowing who your people are, and actually mapping a lot of that out. And I think for many people, when they're thinking about what do I actually need in order to survive in a disaster or an apocalyptic moment or an end of the world kind of scenario, or just a moment of massive change, as you just named, Dani, I think one of the things that's hardest for people to imagine or understand or like let in is like who my people are. Like, who are the people I would actually turn to? Who are the people I can depend on? And how will I know? You know, how do I know who they are? And for me, where that intersects with the sibling miniseries is there is an element of that preparation, knowing who your people are, that's about actively making choices, right? Like choosing the people that you want to move through the most stressing or distressing moments of your life with, and intentionally building relationships with people that, you know, like your goal is to be able to hold each other through something. And one of the things that has been so beautiful in the sibling miniseries is witnessing story after story after story of people who were born into the same family, did not have to choose each other, but chose each other anyway. And like there's a unique I think in every single conversation we witness this. There's this unique power that people sit in. And I don't mean like power in the sense of like power over, but just like power in the expansive sense of being grounded and clear. You know, there's a unique power that they all sit in because they've chosen each other in the world, in addition to being born into the same family. And that's such a different journey than just being born into the same family and then staying in relationship just because. The fact that all of our siblings that we've interviewed are not just able to see each other as family, but also see each other as like partners in this like unique experiment of trying to survive under oppressive conditions. I think there's so much to learn. Like there was a point, and I have to say, I have to really give credit to Adrienne for this whole mini series. This was Adrienne's vision from the beginning. And I think this is something that you wanted to do probably like from a pretty early point in like us creating the podcast, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know why this was the time, but this like kind of felt like the right time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, go with it, you know? And almost all the guests are guests that like Adrienne specifically reached out to and booked. There were a few of the guests were folks that I brought in, but most of the arc was really shaped by Adrienne's vision for who we needed to be talking to and in what order. And and I just have to really commend you for that, because there came a point this year where I realized we have created an archive of our movement. Just if you think about the extraordinary span in generations that are represented in this mini series, and also parts of our social justice movement, where it represents like at least half a century of organizing work.
That's right.
Right? Or
That's
more,
right.
actually, just in who our guests are and where all they come from in the world and in the work. And, you know, from abolition to environmental justice, from Alabama to Puerto Rico, you know, it's like, it is such an expansive body of work that we've now co-created all together that I don't even know that we really truly understand the value of what has happened over this last year. But I want to commend Adrienne for that, because this was really your vision.
Thank you, sister. Thank you for saying yes to it. You know, I feel like you and Zach were like, okay, yeah, let's
Sure.
try it. And I think for me, it's been a profound experience because, you know, our experience of being siblings in movement has felt like such a nourishing thing to me, that I'm like, oh, it helps so much to know that there's someone else who comes from this experience that we share and also feels compelled to change the world in this way. You know, like it's like, yes, right? We understand why from a similar root system. But I also think Alexis Pauline Gumbs wrote this essay a few years ago called Sistering as a Verb. And it really, like, I think about it all the time. I think maybe in it quoting Aisha Shahida Simmons. I'd have to go back and like make all the connections in my brain. I want to source it. But I think about every future that I can imagine is one in which people really can look at each other as like brother and sister and mean it. Like, it's like, I really want to take care of you and be in community with you. And in my life, I was gifted with 2 blood sisters, and then I have chosen additional sisters, right? Dani, you're one of my sisters. Janine is my sister. Jody is my sister. We goddess sisters, you know, like I have gathered and gathered, because it's, to me, one of the most sacred forms of relationship, where you're saying we are in a peer relationship, really. You know, we're within a few years of each other. We share these experiences. We share, if there is trauma in our family, we probably share it. If there was privilege in our family, we probably share it. And so balancing between healing and relinquishing, you know, unjust power and all of that, it's shared. You had to figure it out together. And then the tenderness that a sibling can hold you through. There are just moments in your life where you need someone who really knows you all the way back to the root system to look at you and say, no, we're not settling for this, and we're going to get out of here right now.
Yes,
no,
girl.
We are not going to let these people hurt us like this anymore, or we're not staying in this dumb job, or whatever it is, right? Like we recognize, like, these systems of the world, they're not going to get my sister, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when we listened to all these interviews, and it just felt like each of the siblings had those moments too, where they were just like, remember this, you know, remember that moment, and we had drifted, but then we claimed each other. We found each other. You know, I think about Angela going to find Fania Davis, you know, being like, where are you?
I love that story.
Amazing.
Right? I'm like, the sister does that. You know,
Yes.
the sibling does that, right? And just like thinking about how Makani protected baby Robin, and, you know, like, I'm like, how important is that protection in shaping who Robin Kelly is and the vision that he holds for the world, right? Like, we need those people to just have us. And so, you know, however familial, when I think of family, and I think movement is always trying to be like, we're like family. But I think family needs to be a much more intentional act. And I hope that in the process of this whole podcast, that's one of my goals, is to make the work of family more transparent to people. That's like, family is actually not just defaulting into the patterns that you've always been in. I think the family is the front line of figuring out how we actually do everything differently. And I
Hell
know that the
yes.
relationship that you and I, Autumn, have, and the relationship we have with our sister, is that has been like the first place where I was like, I can show up and say, I want our relationship to be deeper and more intentional and more intimate. I need you guys to know that I'm really struggling with how I see my body. I need someone to tell that to, who I
Yeah.
know loves my body unconditionally.
Yes.
I need to be intentional. Like, why do we, because I want to say this. There were years in our family where every time we would get together for the holidays or whatever, it would fall apart. We would get together and it would just be like countdown to fall apart. Explosion. And then we made a decision together, as a family, starting with the siblings. It's like, when we get together, we're going to go and sit down and actually find out how we all are and what we're coming into this with, because the explosions are not actually about us. It's about what we don't know that's happening in all of our lives,
and not feeling visible,
not feeling like our needs could even be met. And it's like that Lean on Me song, no one can meet those of your needs which you don't let show. And I feel like in my sibling relationships was the first place where I was like, I'm going to let these needs show. Yeah. And then in our family, we let these needs show. And now we meet every week. We are on the phone with each other. I can't believe we weren't doing this our whole lives.
I know, it's weird.
This is one of my gratitudes for what this pandemic has yielded for us, is just these really intense experiences of family. And I think maybe the last thing I'll say on this is, I think moving forward into the world, whether it's chosen family or blood family, I think that the way we're going to navigate the fall of capitalism, the fall of patriarchy, the fall of white supremacy, the fall of these systems, is that we're going to have family, right? Family that can expand into tribe, family that can expand into something like community that can care for each other and feels responsible for each other, right? Like, that's how we're going to get there. So I think it's really, to me, it's like, figure out who your family is, figure out who the people are that you can have these kind of conversations with. And I hope that other siblings listening to this series sit down and have ask yourselves these questions.
Yeah.
Have the conversations amongst yourselves.
Because almost all of the siblings that we spoke to a pair, told us at the beginning of the interview, we've never had this conversation before.
Ever. Yeah. I'm like, wow, this is history. I already told Autumn, I was like, I want to make this a book or something, because I'm still learning that a podcast already is a thing. Right. I'm like, wait, we already made this. We may not have to turn it into something else. But I also am like, it just feels like such a beautiful part of movement history and U.S. history and world history to have this aspect of biographical material. So yeah. I'm really geeked out that it worked out.
It's such a gift. Thank you all for your brilliance.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Dani. There's no one we could have trusted more to hold this part of the conversation with us. Thank you for being our sister.
I know.
It's my pleasure.
It's like, Sister Dani, we need you now.
It's my pleasure.
So we're going to finish up this thing, and we want to talk about top culture. And it's like a very important part of any conversation. But with both of you, y'all are two of the people that I share culture with the most. So I'm also geeked out about this, triangle of culture moment. What is the culture that is helping you move through this period of history?
I'll be quick because I don't have anything that's like accessible to other people. I would say my top culture currently is Siobhan. Siobhan is writing, is starting to write a lot of her own stories. And some of them are short stories. Some of them are like envisioned as novel length stories. Like she has multiple Google Docs with stories that she's writing that have multiple chapters in them. Right now, she's working on a piece of fan fiction that's based on the Red Queen book series.
Oh my God.
And what's really cool is to watch her processing herself in her fiction writing. So like almost every protagonist of every story that she writes is like a young teenage girl who has the power to hypnotize people and make people do things with her mind.
Come on, Gemini sis.
And then like what she's navigating is people being afraid of her and threatened by her and trying to control her. So she has to control them first. And it's just like wild. And there's always a mom character who's like the one person who really accepts her, but also is like, she's like also still trying to take over her mom's mind. And so it's like a whole thing. But I just she shares it all with me. And but like literally she'll come home from school every day and immediately like one of the first questions she'll ask is like, how soon can I pull out my computer so I can keep working on my story, Mom? It's like she is so serious about her writing right now.
Yes,
and
I want that fervor.
It is just really cool to see that show up in a kid at such a young age. And I mean, one of the things I've always loved about Siobhan is like she processes everything in her world through creativity. She always has. Like she's always just created songs to describe whatever is happening in our lives. I wonder, have I told the dead baby story on the podcast before?
You might have told it way back, but I don't think it would.
I think it's worth retelling because it's just one of the best things that happened in the process of losing my baby, which was such a horrible, horrible thing. But
yeah.
Siobhan was probably
back in
like
2014.
That was 2014. So let's see. That was 7 years ago. And so Siobhan would have been like 4.
Wow.
And this was like immediate wake of losing the baby. I had gotten back from the hospital. This was probably like the night that I got back from the hospital, or maybe the next night. I'm like totally in grief cloud, fog, not able to really even interact with anyone in a normal way. And I'm just kind of standing in the dining room of my old house and just like standing there, not really with it. And Siobhan comes walking through the dining room holding a small child keyboard in her hand, playing this keyboard in her hands, and walks through the dining room singing, "Dead baby, dead baby," and just walks through the kitchen and into the next room. And it snapped me out of my fog momentarily. Yeah. And I started laughing. Yeah.
We all started laughing.
And and then I went back into my fog, and I remained in my fog for like months and months. But it was like something about this child. Like she's always been so magical and in touch with her environment, and always has had this beautiful like capacity to just like immediately translate whatever is happening into song, into dance, into a scene that she's acting out, and now into fiction that she's writing.
I love that story. Like, I love that. I have slightly different memories of it, but I also love that piece of it. But one of the things I love is that I remember so many times Siobhan having an experience with someone, getting mad, and going to the next room being like, "I'm really angry at you." It's just like, yes. I'm like that.
Or like we'll get into an argument, and then she'll like draw a comic of what happened. Exactly. And then hand it to me.
Brilliant. She's like, here's the monster, that's you. Yeah, so my top culture. Well, right now I'm knee deep in Will Smith's autobiography, and I'm actually thoroughly enjoying it. Really highly recommend it. I'm listening to it as an audiobook, and I definitely think that's how you should all listen to it or experience it, because it's just Will. It's like you're being with him. It's great. And I finished the Red Queen series finally, all 4 books, and I'm reading the additional material of it. So
yeah, Well, so HBO has really been giving me what I need in terms of just like
Mm.
rom-com series. I just love a good rom-com. And so I just binged Starstruck, which
Ooh.
stars this comedian from New Zealand named Rose Matafeo. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her last name, but she's just amazing. And it's just a cute little romantic comedy set in London. And she's just giving me everything I need. She's somebody who I watch her on the show and I'm like, she's a star. Like, I hope she
Ah.
makes it huge because she is
Mm.
just executing every single scene. She's so funny. She's so gorgeous. Like, so I'm just
Gotta
rooting
look
for
this up
her.
right now.
It's good. It's good.
That's exciting.
Stop ruining my cool moment with the window. When people see us together, it's like one of those, weird animal friendship shows where you see a Labrador and a hedgehog with friends and everyone's like, oh, that's not right, that's weird, but okay, if it works for them, great.
People don't think that.
Obviously, you would say that you're the fucking Labrador.
And then before Starstruck, I watched Love Life, also on HBO, which it was very good. And it's William Jackson Harper from The Good Place, which I did not watch. And Jessica Williams is really the standout on that show.
Yeah.
The comedian?
She's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
She's
I
on
love
there.
her.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
good.
her.
It's good. And it's got like all your Black faves from like sitcoms and 90s movies. So it's got like Aunt Viv is in there, Blair Underwood and Kimberly Elise. Like it's just,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
good.
Okay.
It's really
Love
good.
Life.
Love Life, yeah.
Love Life. Okay.
Love Life and
Life
Starstruck.
was
Bury the Blair
Highly
Underwood
recommend.
lead.
Oh no, he's only in one episode, but he does.
Okay.
Once a heartthrob, always a heartthrob.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just like, look. Very good. Thank you so much, Dani, for
Mhm.
coming and joining us and letting us be in this intimate space with you.
Oh my gosh,
I
we
felt
love
like
you
we
so
could
much
trust
and
it.
everything that
We
you
love
do,
you
Dani.
deeply.
I love you guys. Thank you for inviting me in.
Thanks for listening to our show. We're on Twitter and Instagram at End of the World PC. We're also on Facebook at End of the World Show.
How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the incomparable and delightful Zach Rosen. And we're transcribed by Jess Pinkham.
And music for today's show comes from Tunde Olaniran and Mother Cyborg.
And if you like this show, rate and review us wherever you listen to the podcast. And if you don't like it, you don't have to rate and review anything. I heard Glennon Doyle say that, and I was like, yeah.
You don't have to say anything if you don't like it.
I was like, you don't have to say anything ever. All right. Bye.